Good morning. This is Caroline Scott in Scotland on the 27th of April, 2024. How time is passing. Today I want to read from a book written by H.E.Bates and illustrated by Agnes Miller Parker. It was she who brought me to this book and his writings. This is Through the Woods, and the first chapter starts in April, headed The English Woodland, April to April. And as it is nearing the end of April, I'm going to start. The wood in April. The wood is not far from the house. You can see it, in fact, from the windows. We might as well go straight down to it. It is one of those early April mornings that are neither warm nor cold, and the light on the land is a kind of spring half-light, not shadow and not sun, a soft and rather treacherous glimmering from behind the northwest cloud. The wind is quite strong and in open places finger cold, and there is a continuous dancing everywhere of branch and flower and even grass. On the open green outside the house, there is only a row of elms and chestnuts to break the wind, and the trees are still not in leaf. So the wind comes straight across, rippling the pond into a little sea with dark, fitful little waves that must be quite stormy for the moorhens. The grass on the green is a thin, speary grass, grown tussocky, and the rains of winter have flattened it into a kind of brownish yellow mattress. It hardly moves in the wind. Above it, however, many lady smocks, standing in small mauve companies, dance and fret incessantly. There are no other flowers except an odd dandelion or two, and some patches of celandine almost hidden by the grass. And except for them and the yellow fluttering of distant daffodils through garden fences, it might be winter. But we turn right from the house, going southeast. Southeast is here today. And instantly it's better. And after a few moments, when we are off the green and into the lane itself, between the thick, high hedges of haw and maple and holly, it is infinitely better. Another world. The lane is cut deeply out of the earth, the banks rising up from it sheer for 3 or 4 feet, so that later, when the hedge is full grown and in full leaf, it will be like walking in a roofless tunnel. Even now the difference is wonderful. The wind does not trouble us at all. It makes an incessant swishing in the pines overhead and in the hedge tops, a whining, melancholy noise, and in yet some way sweet. But below in the lane, the calm is quite miraculous. We walk in stillness in a primrose world of absolute spring. We can see the wood quite clearly now. It runs along a right angle bend of the road, so that we look at it broadside on. It looks quite small and yet for some reason very solid, as though it stretches a long way back. Actually, it's not very large. Far behind it and high up on the face and crest of the downs is a wood that is large. It spreads like some colossal wild black rug over the back of the down, so that for 3 miles at least no earth at all is visible. Nothing but this monumental mass of trees, an immense and almost primevally magnificent wood that is a landmark for a dozen miles. Beside it in the wood, in the lane, looks no more than a spinney, a neat domestic little copse. But from a distance, as I say, even from a short distance, it gives the impression of solidity, of endurance, of having been there a long time. From our angle, it seems to be composed of a single species of tree. It seems to be a solid mass of white birch trunks. They are breaking into leaf at last. They are losing for the first time in nearly 6 months their look of sombre ruddiness, as though their branches had been dipped in burgundy. And if there were still any doubt about spring, it is dispelled by the birches. The green of their leaves that has infinite tenderness that it will never have again all summer. And there is not yet too much of it. The green leaves are merely like so many soft paint splashes among the dark branches. A little drawing here from Agnes Miller Parker. So, from this angle, the wood looks not only solid, but awake. It is almost the best time to come to it, between time half bud, half leaf. The leaves will never show up again with the same brilliance, except in autumn. And there is something else that will never show up again until autumn, as it shows up now. The big spread of bracken that is really the beginning of the wood. It begins at the very angle of the road and comes down to the edge of it, bordered by a hawthorn hedge that is so thin that it's not really a hedge at all. This bracken is dead, and it has been dead for 6 months. There are no trees on it except some misshapen gorse bushes, some odd oaks, and 2 sallow trees, now green with catkins that are past their best. So the bracken stretches openly for about 50 yards until there comes to a point at which it fuses with the wood. It is in reality a point of overlapping. Birches overlapping bracken, bracken running under the birches. The trees at first thin and small, then gradually thicker and taller, until they annihilate the bracken and rise in a solid mass of white trunks that are brilliant in their own shadows. I have described this bracken because, though it sounds dead and dry and ready for the complete annihilation by its own new leaves, it stands as a perfect foil for the wood. Its pale fox colour shows up the trees in a wonderful way. The trees look supremely rich against its dry deadness. They are thick and sweet with the life the bracken has lost. Even so, the bracken is not dead, as looks. It holds another life, a little paradise of small bird life. In unthinkable spots, in mere tangles of dead bracken, twisted by rain and wind and frost, it houses nests too cunning for even boys to find. little miracles of moss and feather built invisibly into precarious clumps of bracken stalk. The work of tits and robins and wrens, nests only found by chance or great patience, or by the accidental rousing of the birds themselves. There is a path through the bracken, but it is accidental. Presumably, one must not use it. I will say why in a minute. I do use it. The real path, the path through the wood, lies lower down the road. It goes through the heart of the birches, a wide, bracken-flanked track that switchbacks up and down and is cut by deep tracks of timber wagons that have been fetching out the sweet chestnut thinnings during the winter. After about 50 yards, it splits. The timber track goes straight on, and the public path veers to the left and goes downhill. It is at this point, standing on the crest of the hill and with the paths branching, that you see the wood at its very best. You are standing in the heart of it. It lies all about you. Not a big wood, not grand or primeval or overpowering at all, yet it seems big. Its boundaries are invisible. The birches close in thickly behind you, shutting out the road, except for a yard or two. Before you, along the flat and down the slope, the big oaks and sweet chestnuts and the few distant pines and wych elms thicken just enough to shut out the river and its meadows, and in summer, the sky. The sounds of the outside world are dimmed, gone. The wood echoes with sounds peculiar to itself. The furtive treading of pheasants along the big papery chestnut leaves, the clap of pigeon wings, the squawk of blackbirds, and the sound of rabbits scuttling to hiding, of jays laughing. The wood magnifies them all, gives them a certain quality of excitement, almost of mystery. They in turn seem to magnify the silence, which in turn itself is a little mysterious, an expansive hush without wind, the strange silence of a small and confined world. We take the downward path. Just at the crest, foxgloves are thick, but flowerless yet, of course, all over the place. Among them and beyond them, and in fact over every inch of wood, as far as and even beyond its boundaries, the bluebells are also thickening for flower, a million spikes with dark hearts of bud, and here and there a breaking out of petals. They cover the rich, soggy wood soil like shining green reeds everywhere. Among them, and perhaps because of them, there are a few primroses, fewer anemones. The bluebells crowd out everything, drown the whole wood floor with great pools of flower until the trees in May seem to be standing in deep lakes of liquid mauve. But now in April, the wood is not rich in flower. Chance bunches of primroses, a white scattering of anemones, a few almost transparent cups of wood sorrel, nothing more. It is not even very rich in leaf. The sunlight comes down to it unbroken, except for a mere netting of shadow. The hazels, the catkinless now, have scarcely begun to break. The oaks are brown and bare. The chestnuts have only prim buttonholes of leaf. The honeysuckles alone are green. Bright scarves of green thrown over what might seem beside them, the drab hazels. We go down the slope quite steeply. The path is wide. There is a sense of spaciousness. Formerly, hazels and young Spanish chestnuts overgrew the path, but a winter's thinning has opened out the whole wood and the old high trees alone remaining. The thinning has, in fact, been a revelation. Hidden trees have come to light. For the first time, for years, some great birches stand visible, surprisingly white, tall as oaks. We shall see, in May, the whole sweep of bluebells. But the river still lies invisible, and for those coming for the first time, unsuspected. It is the bridge that finally gives it away, a small white bridge running from wood to meadow over what is really, in spite of the maps, no more than a brook. It is not more than 10 feet wide, and in most places not more than 1 foot deep. It flows very fast between steep banks, jingling and diddling and rippling over a bed of sand and stone. The water, clear as wine, the water weeds, spun out by everlasting water motion into very long emerald skeins. Yellow water lilies thick in summer, in the odd 3-foot pools, yellow mimulus, the monkey musk dipping down almost into the water on the wood side. In summer, moorhens sail and paddle away in fringes of meadowsweet and burnet and loose strife that enrich the banks far beyond the wood with cream and wine, and in hot weather, snakes swim above the trout like fish themselves, big silvery worms shining in the tree-darkened water. This fusion of wood and water is an entrancing thing. Without the wood, the stream would be nothing, a mere thin watercourse winding through its flat meadows. Without the water, the wood on its slope, and with its air of quietness and mystery, and of being a world within itself, could not help being a constant, delightful thing. But water and wood together, shading and watering and bounding each other, each give to the other something which the other does not possess. The wood giving to the stream something solid and shadowy, immemorial, and the stream giving to the wood all the incomparable movement and twinkling transience of moving water. The tree shadows standing deep in the stream, the reflection of sunlight flickering, a kind of water light up into the shadowy branches of pine and alder. The wood and the water are here, in fact, one for each other and with each other. It is a fusion that is almost perfect. There is, to my mind, a single imperfection, a solitary snag. Here one must go back. There is no wood beyond the stream. There is only an immense view of the ridge of down with the great wood like a black skin thrown over it. And between it and the little stream, there is only a stretch of arable and pasture lands, of prime fields, with stocky thorn hedges and many sheep. It seems better to go back. But to go back means, of course, to go back through the wood, legitimately the same way, by the same path. And always doing that, I feel a sense of anticlimax. It is better to go back illegitimately, to trespass. By doing that, we can skirt the wood on its south side and come out finally by the keeper's hut through the path in the bracken. Under the wood on the south side, it is suddenly quite hot. The sun is coming out a little, and there is no wind at all. We are shut in by the woods. They make a solid rectangle about the field, shutting out completely the wind and the world. All these are separate woods, intersected by paths and in some cases by dikes, and they are all good woods to look at, thick and solid, and with the last burnings of sallow and hazel flower still smouldering among their boundaries. But beyond that, they hold nothing. Inside they're dark and in some way dead, and the undergrowth a brutish tangle. The wet spots stinking with garlic. There are woods that have no spirit of life at all, that are not worth entering. And these are like that. We go straight on, under the most sultry woodside, until the corner comes, the turn, the angle of the wood, beyond which the bracken begins. The keeper's hut is in sight. We have almost completed the circuit. Between two young oaks on a stretched string hang the keeper's victims, the wild enemies of the precious tame pheasants whose destiny in life is to be cared for more tenderly than most babies, and to be massacred a little more brutally than most soldiers. There they hang, the enemies of the squirearchy. Half a dozen hedgehogs, a brown owl or two, stoats, weasels, jays and magpies, a whole fur shop of young grey squirrels, with one, almost white, a pure silvery grey, that should have made a good cheap fur for any keeper's wife. And here too you see the reason for much of the wood's quietness, its lack of apparent life. Its life is systematically exterminated. All life that is, except the pheasant and the rabbit, who are reserved for a deaf on a socially higher plane. For the heart and core of these woods is contained, for those who own them, in one small place, a little oval, the pheasant's egg. If you do not understand this, if it seems to you extraordinary, or fantastic, or even monstrous, that the egg of one bird can create a position of autocracy, let me leave you here, so that you may moon about the wood to your heart's content until, sometime between now and 5 o'clock, the keeper comes. You may discover a curious thing, that for him, the keeper, You are no more than a snake or a weasel or a hedgehog, a predatory beast, a potential succorer of tame eggs. To him, you are just that. It will not avail you anything at all if you tell him that you are interested in life and you have never touched an egg in all your born days, and that you are there solely to taste the wood and the beauty of the wood alone. You are regarded by him as a potential poacher, in spite of all your protestations of innocence, and in spite of the fact that you may not know a snare from a potato net, or even just as likely a rabbit from a hare. It does not matter. The pheasant is the lord of life, the almost divine sovereign of the woods. You must not, by word or look or trespass, do anything to upset his chances of ordained death. Unlike the murderer who falls sick on the eve of execution. Interesting slip of the word there. We're having an education from H.E.Bates. Gratefully received, I may say. Like the murderer who falls sick on the eve of execution, he must be kept alive, tenderly, jealously, at all costs, in order that the squire, may not be cheated of the ultimate satisfaction of prearranged extermination. There are those who talk of the evil spirit of woods, but for me, there is only one evil spirit of woods, the keeper. I suppose that somewhere there must be keepers who are pleasant, considerate, friendly men, who love their wives and smile and exhibit other signs of common humanity. But it has never been my luck to meet one. Keepers are, I feel, brutalized by the life they lead, the double dealing of life, the double dealing life of servitude and autocracy, by the constant ironic necessity of having to preserve to kill, and to kill in order to preserve. It is not their fault. They are victims of a system of organized sadism. And very likely, I think, they never understand it. So they are men with more enemies than even a rat, with many more enemies than the poacher they hunt. They are hated everywhere. It is a hatred in which I join, and in which I am unlucky. For it would be just my luck if at this moment, just as we were almost out of the wood, the keeper were to appear. I might quarrel with him as bitterly as I quarrelled with that other keeper, the young man with the sunburnt, queer, brutal stare, of whom I shall have much more to say later. Now, I will only say that, quite avowedly and quite simply, I hate him. With a good, simple, hot-blooded hatred, that in no doubt he, in return, after 4 years, still hates me. But luckily the keeper does not appear. We walk across the bracken and under the few oaks and sallows, and so out into the road. The sun is shining a little, but the wind is still cool, and the dead oak leaves rattle in the wind. And standing on the road, we can look back. In a break of sunlight, the wood is suddenly lit up. It is a mass of burning branches of buds about to break into the first flame of summer. It looks extraordinarily beautiful. There is something about it, in fact, that makes it the best wood I know. I'm hiding the next chapter to come. I hope you enjoyed that. Click like and share with your friends. Thank you very much. Much love and thank you.